Did you know that Johnny Depp, yes, the legendary Captain Jack Sparrow himself, kept a heartbreaking secret for decades? And just a minute ago, he finally revealed it to the world. If you've ever felt like you had to hide something deeply personal, out of fear, shame, or simply the fear of being misunderstood, you're definitely not alone. Even those who seem to have it all figured out, who live in the limelight, can be carrying silent burdens. And Johnny's confession might be the most surprising and emotional revelation yet from a Hollywood icon who's always been full of mystery. 4. Years fans have speculated about Depp's enigmatic persona, his soft-spoken interviews, his deep connection to the characters he portrays, and his seemingly reclusive nature off-camera. What if all of that, or at least part of it, was a mask to protect something incredibly personal? Something so raw and formative that it shaped how he walked through life and how he built his career. That's what makes this moment so powerful. For the first time ever, Johnny has pulled back the curtain. Not for publicity, not for drama, but simply to be real. And what he shared has left fans speechless. So here's how it unfolded. Just moments ago at a quiet, almost impromptu event. In France, not a huge red carpet affair, but more of an artistic roundtable tucked away from flashing lights, Johnny was there to talk about a new project that's deeply personal to him. As he answered questions from a small circle of journalists, the tone shifted from professional to intimate when someone casually asked, "What's something your fans still don't know about you?" There was a pause. A long, genuine pause. Not the kind of silence that comes when someone is searching for something clever to say, but the kind that comes when someone's deciding whether to finally let go of a weight they've carried for too long. And then, in a quiet voice, he said it. "I've lived with severe dyslexia my whole life." For a moment, no one said anything. It was as if the room itself needed a second to catch up. Johnny didn't stop there. He explained how, as a kid growing up in Kentucky, reading felt like trying to decode a foreign language. Letters danced around on the page, instructions made no sense. Even the simplest words looked like puzzles. School was a nightmare, he remembered. Feeling stupid, even though he knew deep down he wasn't. But when you're a child being called lazy or inattentive because you can't read like the others, those labels stick. He said that acting, believe it or not, became his escape. While most actors study scripts, analyze text, and break down lines, Johnny had to rely on something different. Memory, emotion, rhythm. He would listen to recordings of dialogue, repeat them again and again, internalizing every pause and inflection. Until he didn't just know the lines, he became them. That's how he learned to thrive in a profession that depends so heavily on reading. It wasn't about cheating the process, he said. It was about surviving it, and he kept it hidden from directors, producers, even close friends, not out of deceit but out of self-preservation. He was already viewed as unconventional, a bit of a mystery in Hollywood's carefully packaged system. Admitting he struggled with reading, that could have changed everything, so he built a persona, a shell, a version of himself that could deflect questions and bury the truth under charm, wit, and charisma. But things changed when he became a father. His daughter, Lily Rose, was the first person he opened up to fully. She was curious, observant, and had inherited her father's empathy. As she got older, Johnny said, he didn't want to keep secrets from her. He told her about his dyslexia, and instead of reacting with pity or concern, she was proud. She told him that sharing it could help others, that vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was strength. It was that conversation that made him start thinking differently. Maybe, just maybe, telling his story could give someone else the courage to tell theirs, and this wasn't just an emotional confession. There was substance behind his message. Johnny spoke about the tools he developed over the years. He became a master at using color filters to help reduce visual stress on the page. He used recording devices in the early days to play back scripts while walking or driving. He would sometimes write out entire monologues by hand, not to read them, but to internalize them through the muscle memory of writing. These weren't hacks or shortcuts. They were methods born out of necessity and resilience. Experts agree that dyslexia doesn't reflect intelligence or effort. Neuropsychologist Dr. Kate Wendell, who has worked with creative professionals for decades, has said, Dyslexia is simply a different neurological wiring. It often comes with an exceptional ability to think in pictures, to innovate, and to empathize. And doesn't that describe Depp perfectly? From Edward Scissorhands to Donnie Brasco to Willy Wonka, his performances have always carried layers of nuance, imagination, and depth. It makes sense now. He wasn't just playing a part, he was translating a world he couldn't always read into something the rest of us could feel. And here's another surprising thing Johnny revealed. Music played a huge role in how he managed his dyslexia. He would study lyrics, especially from old rock records. He'd read along while the songs played, using the rhythm to guide his understanding of the text. It turned reading into something enjoyable rather than stressful. That technique, using rhythm and musicality, is actually supported by research. Studies have shown that rhythm-based reading interventions can significantly help those with dyslexia by strengthening the brain's timing and sequencing skills. Johnny also talked about the emotional weight of hiding this for so long. Imagine for a moment what it must have felt like to be Johnny Depp, a man adored globally, celebrated for his versatility, talent, and depth, carrying a secret that made him feel completely unworthy behind closed doors. For decades, he operated under the constant pressure of being someone else. To fans, he was a genius. To directors and producers, he was a risk-taker, an artist who brought unpredictable brilliance to the screen. Yet internally, he carried the suffocating fear that if people truly knew the extent of his struggle, that he had difficulty reading a script or needed hours of extra time to memorize lines, they might not admire him in the same way. That perhaps the world's affection for him was based on a version of himself that wasn't entirely real, and that kind of emotional dissonance, when maintained over years and years, doesn't just wear you down, it quietly rewrites how you see yourself. For Johnny, the fear wasn't irrational. The entertainment industry, as creative as it may seem on the surface, can often be ruthlessly conventional behind the scenes. Actors are expected to hit their marks, deliver their lines with precision, and do so under incredible time pressure. A learning disability like dyslexia doesn't fit neatly into that world. It demands extra time, accommodation, patience, things that are often in short supply on a tight production schedule. So Johnny did what many people in his position might do. He hid it. He learned how to compensate, how to pretend, how to get by without letting anyone see the truth. He described it like playing a role, not just on set, but all the time. Even in interviews, press tours, casual conversations on set, he was on, always guarding the line between who he was and who people thought he was. He spoke about how isolating that was. Not because people weren't kind to him. In fact, he said he was lucky to work with many compassionate and intelligent collaborators, but because when you're hiding something, even kindness can feel like a threat. If someone compliments your preparation, your attention to detail, or your dedication, part of you feels like a fraud. You smile, nod, accept the praise, but inside you're screaming, "If only you knew how hard this is for me. If only you knew how terrified I am that you'll find out." That's what makes hiding a struggle so painful. It's not just the burden of the struggle itself. It's the constant performance of pretending it doesn't exist. Johnny shared that one of the hardest parts was the way dyslexia affected his self-worth, especially as a young person. He remembered being labeled as lazy, distracted, even stupid in school. Not because he wasn't trying, but because he couldn't keep up in the traditional way. He said those labels stuck to him like glue long after he left the classroom. Even when he was standing on a stage accepting awards or reading glowing reviews of his work, there was still a part of him that felt undeserving. That inner child, the one who struggled with letters and felt dumb for not being able to read aloud. Like the other kids, never fully went away. He just got better at hiding him. He described the internal conflict as exhausting. On the outside, he was thriving, starring in blockbuster films, creating unforgettable characters, traveling the world. But on the inside, he felt like he was always bracing for impact. Bracing for the moment someone would pull the curtain back and see the flawed, anxious person beneath the confident exterior. This wasn't just insecurity. It was a chronic, deep-rooted fear of exposure. A fear that the career he'd worked so hard to build might crumble if the truth came out. And for years, that fear dictated how he interacted with the world. He told a story that really drove the point home. During the early days of his acting career, he was handed a last-minute rewrite of a scene, something that happens all the time in film and television. But for Johnny, it wasn't just a matter of relearning lines. It meant confronting a wall of text that felt like a jumbled, indecipherable mess. He panicked. Not visibly, of course. He nodded, took the script, walked away like everything was fine. But inside, he was spiraling. He spent the next several hours alone in his trailer, reading and rereading the lines, breaking them down phonetically, memorizing them by sound rather than sight. And then he walked onto set, delivered the performance, and no one knew the difference. He said that was both the triumph and the tragedy of it. He could always pull it off, but at what cost? It wasn't until much later, after he became a father, that he began to understand the damage that kind of hiding can do. Watching his children grow up, he began to see how much courage it takes to be vulnerable, to ask for help, to say, "This is hard for me." He realized that if he wanted to be the kind of parent who encouraged honesty and self-acceptance, he needed to model those things himself. That's when he began the slow, painful process of letting go of the mask. And even then, it took years before he was ready to say it out loud to the public. Because even after all his success, that little voice, the one that said he wasn't good enough, still whispered in the back of his mind. And yet, when he finally did share it, something amazing happened. Instead of being judged, he was embraced. Instead of being seen as weak, he was seen as brave. Fans began reaching out with their own stories about struggling in school, feeling misunderstood, battling shame over something they had no control over. And Johnny realized he wasn't alone, far from it. In fact, his story had the power to make others feel seen, maybe for the first time. That's the power of vulnerability. It connects us. It reminds us that we're not the only ones carrying invisible burdens. And for Johnny Depp, a man who built a career on playing characters, telling his real story may be the most powerful performance of all. He said one of his biggest fears was being seen as incapable. People think dyslexia is just mixing up letters. But it's more than that. It's self-doubt. It's shame. It's years of being told you're not trying hard enough. Those words cut deep. Not just for Johnny, but for anyone who's ever silently carried the weight of being misunderstood. It's one thing to struggle with reading or processing words. It's another to be judged for it, to be dismissed as lazy, careless, or unintelligent. That's what he meant when he said dyslexia isn't just a learning disorder. It becomes a lens through which you view yourself, and that lens can distort everything. When Johnny said that, there was a kind of stillness in the room. You could feel the emotional gravity in the way he delivered the line, not with bitterness, but with a quiet honesty that made it all the more impactful. The journalists who were there reported that some people visibly teared up, and when the clip hit the internet, it was like a dam broke. People from all walks of life, students, parents, teachers, even professionals in the entertainment industry, began flooding the comment sections with their own stories. Stories about struggling in school despite putting in more effort than anyone realized. Stories about being called slow or stupid by classmates or even teachers. Stories about carrying the shame of not fitting into a system that rewards only one kind of intelligence. What was remarkable was the tone of these responses. They weren't bitter. They were grateful. Grateful that someone like Johnny Depp, a man whose talent and charisma are legendary, had pulled back the curtain and said, "Me too." That sense of shared humanity, of realizing that even people we idolize face the same private battles, is incredibly healing. People said they finally felt seen, that Johnny's confession gave them permission to stop hiding. One person wrote, "I've spent my whole life pretending I wasn't. Struggling. I thought I had to mask it to be successful. Hearing Johnny talk about this so openly, it was like a weight lifted off my chest." Another commented, "My son has dyslexia and has always felt like something was wrong with him. I showed him this video and for the first time, I saw pride in his eyes." That's the ripple effect of vulnerability. When someone we admire shares their truth, it makes space for others to do the same. Johnny didn't offer a polished, inspirational speech. He spoke from lived experience with all its messiness and fear and resilience, and because of that authenticity, his words landed where they needed to, in the hearts of people who needed to hear them most. What he revealed was more than just a personal struggle. It was a collective truth that too many people carry silently. And now, thanks to his courage, that silence is finally breaking. And Johnny didn't just stop at his own story. He used this moment to advocate for change, especially in schools. He said if he had been diagnosed properly as a child and given support rather than judgment, things could have been very different. He wants kids today to know that being different isn't a flaw. It's often a superpower waiting to be discovered. We have to stop making children feel broken for learning differently, he said, because once they start believing that, it's hard to undo. This powerful message comes at a time when more public figures are speaking out about dyslexia and learning disabilities, from Richard Branson to Whoopi Goldberg to Steven Spielberg. But hearing it from Johnny Depp, someone whose very craft revolves around the written word, gives it a deeply personal twist. He's not a motivational speaker. He's not selling anything. He's just a man, finally lifting the veil on a part of himself he's kept hidden for too long. So now that the world knows, what comes next? For Johnny, this may mark a new chapter, one where he leans into advocacy, one where he stops pretending everything's perfect and starts connecting with people through truth rather than mystique. And honestly, fans are loving it. There's something refreshing and even healing about seeing someone so revered reveal that they too are human. If this story moved you, think about the people in your own life, maybe a friend, a partner, or a child who struggles silently. Maybe even you. What would happen if you stopped hiding? If you shared your truth? Like Johnny did? Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit we're still figuring it out. And let's keep this conversation going. What's something you used to feel ashamed of, but now embrace? What tools or mindsets helped you overcome it? Drop your stories in the comments. You never know who might need to hear exactly what you have to say. And if this video resonated with you, you'll definitely want to check out our next piece. It dives into the real reason Johnny's demeanor shifted so dramatically during the court battles, and what the public never saw behind those headlines. The link's right here, waiting for you. And hey, if you appreciated this raw, honest look into Johnny's life, consider giving this a like. Maybe subscribe if you haven't yet, and tap that bell icon so you won't miss the next story that just might change how you see the world. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm really glad you're here. See you in the next one.